All right, everyone, welcome. So our modern world is pretty much built on science, right? It gives us all our gadgets, our medicine. It gives us this incredible picture of reality that's all about atoms, equations, and forces. But what if I told you that in building that powerful picture, we might have accidentally left something huge out? A philosopher named Edmund Husserl thought so, and his answer to what we've missed might just change how you think about everything.
So let's start with this question because it was the one that really obsessed Husserl in his later work. He looked around and saw what he called a profound crisis, not because science was failing, but because it was just so incredibly successful. It's a bit of a paradox, right? He believed that in this relentless quest for pure, objective truth, science had somehow managed to sideline the very thing that matters most, what the world actually means to us, the humans who live in it.
Look at the trade-off here. On the one hand, science promises us everything we could want: objective, undeniable truth, progress, the power to control nature. It hands us this beautiful, elegant universe of mathematical laws. But Husserl looked at this and saw the hidden cost. He saw a crisis of meaning. In this cold, objective reality, there's no inherent place for things like love, or purpose, or beauty. In its moment of triumph, he argued, science had accidentally forgotten the very world it set out to explain in the first place.
Now, to really wrap our heads around this crisis, Husserl says we need to be a bit like philosophical archaeologists. We have to dig back to the very beginnings of modern science, back to a guy named Galileo, and the absolutely brilliant, but, as Husserl sees it, fateful method that he pioneered.
So Galileo didn't just pull this out of thin air. He had a secret weapon, one he inherited from the ancient Greeks: pure geometry. And you have to understand, geometry had already perfected the art of escaping the messy, imperfect world of our senses. It created its own perfect little universe of ideal shapes and pure logic.
At the heart of this whole method is a process Husserl gives a special name to: idealization. Now, this is a key term. It's not just about simplifying things. It's a much more radical move. It's about taking something from the real world and swapping it out for a perfect, purely mental idea that the real thing can never ever truly be.
Okay, think about it like this. Try to draw a circle on a piece of paper. It's going to be a bit wobbly, right? The line has some thickness, it's an imperfect, perceived shape. But the idea of a circle in geometry, that's a whole different beast. It's a perfect limit shape, a flawless locus of points with zero width. You can't see it or touch it. You can only grasp it with your mind. And that leap from the wobbly thing you see to the perfect thing you think, that is idealization.
And here is Galileo's moment of absolute genius. He took this method of idealization and he didn't just apply it to shapes. He applied it to everything. He looked at the entire natural world, a falling stone, the moon, the tides, and said, you know what? I can treat all of this as if it's one giant, perfect mathematical system. He decided that the book of nature was written in the language of mathematics.
Now this technique, this mathematization of nature, was unbelievably successful. It literally gave us modern physics. But, and for Husserl this is a massive but, it also led to this huge, almost invisible philosophical mistake.
Husserl has this great phrase for it. He says, a surreptitious substitution happened. It was sneaky. We got so dazzled by the power of our mathematical models that we forgot they were just models. We started to confuse the map, those neat, elegant equations, with the actual territory, the messy, complex world of our lived experience.
And Husserl just nails it with this quote: "We take for true being what is actually a method." Let that sink in for a second. We started to believe that the real world actually was the mathematical structure our science described. We totally forgot that this structure was just the result of our own method, our way of measuring things. We mistook our measuring stick for reality itself.
And the fallout from this was enormous. Suddenly the world that you and I actually live in, the world we see and touch and hear and feel every day, it got demoted. It became a kind of second-class citizen. It was no longer the real deal, but just a subjective appearance, maybe even an illusion. The real world was now this invisible realm of particles and forces and mathematical laws that only science could access.
So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, for Husserl, the first job of philosophy is to hit the brakes and correct this huge mistake. It's to call our attention back to the very world that science, in its drive for abstraction, had basically forgotten and put in brackets.
And he gives this world a name that has become incredibly important in philosophy, the Lebenswelt, which just translates to the life world. This is the world as we experience it before we start doing any science or theorizing about it. It's the completely taken for granted, familiar background of our entire lives.
And let's be really clear here. This is not some fancy, abstract philosophical concept. The life world is the most concrete, down-to-earth thing there is. It's the world of the coffee cup in your hand, the book on your desk, your friends and family, the park down the street. It's the world where things are useful or beautiful or maybe even dangerous. It's the world you're in right this very second.
Okay, now here's the crucial twist. For any of you who might be thinking this all sounds a little anti-science, listen closely. Husserl is not trying to pit the life world against science. His point is much more radical. He's arguing that the life world is the forgotten foundation that the entire massive structure of science is actually built on.
I love this metaphor from another phenomenologist, Stefan Strasser. The life world is the fertile soil that makes any kind of theoretical knowledge possible in the first place. You can't have the rich growth of the plant without the soil it's rooted in. It's just that simple.
And just think about how science actually gets done. It's not some disembodied, abstract process. Scientists are people living in the world. They have to set up physical lab equipment. They have to literally see a needle on a dial. That's an act of perception. They have to talk to their colleagues to check their results. That's a social act. They write their theories using a shared language. Every single step is a human action, totally grounded in the life world. Science doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a human practice.
And this brings us to a point I really want to hammer home, especially for those of you who hear this and think it's all just pseudoscience. Husserl is not anti-science, far from it. He's actually pro-clarity. He's arguing that for science to be fully itself, to recover its meaning for humanity, it has to get a clear understanding of its own roots in our shared lived experience.
So this brings us full circle. Back to that nagging question some of you might have. If the objective world of science is just one garb of ideas, as Husserl calls it, thrown over this life world, then how on earth can an investigation of the life world claim to be a rigorous science itself? I mean, isn't that just subjective description?
For Husserl, the rigor of this new kind of science, phenomenology, comes from a radical commitment to one thing: describing experience exactly as it shows up, before we slap any scientific or philosophical theories onto it. The rigor isn't in mathematics, it's in the discipline of careful, honest description of the very foundation of all our knowledge. His goal was to create a science of the ground upon which all other sciences have to stand.
And this is the thought I want to leave you with today. If it's true, if even our hardest sciences like physics are fundamentally grounded in the shared world of human experience, then what else is? What about mathematics and logic? What about our sense of ethics or our experience of art? Suddenly, this life world isn't just a quaint idea. It's the hidden foundation for pretty much everything. And that, I think, opens up a whole new world for us to explore.